Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. ACC, Big 12, SEC, Conference USA, AAC, everybody was back, whatever it was, September 6th or whatever. The SEC comes on board a few weeks later. The Big 10 finally comes on board 3 Saturdays ago this coming weekend. And now, as I said, the MAC is back. There's MACtion on my TV as I record this, and the Pac-12 is back this weekend. And so I've kind of done this every time another conference has come back, the SEC, the Big 10 a few weeks ago. What I just wanted to do is spend a minute kind of just giving you a quick rundown of what happened in the Pac-12 last year. Because listen, just because the Pac-12 isn't always quote-unquote good, they don't always have quote-unquote playoff contenders, it is still an interesting conference. And at the very least, admit it, you're going to love it when that Clemson-Notre Dame game ends and you can flip over to ESPN and you get a little Cal Washington to put you to sleep at 1:30 in the morning. It's as American as apple pie is Pac-12 After Dark. So I want to give a quick rundown of what happened last year, what you may have forgotten. And as I've done with all these other conferences, this is not an in-depth breakdown like if you want like the Oregon State, defensive depth chart, like this probably isn't the place for it. It doesn't strike me as something you guys would be interested in. Just want to give you, again, a quick reminder of what happened, what you might have forgotten, all the things that happened in this conference last year as they get set for their first set of games this weekend. The first thing, the most important thing, the most dominant program as things stand in the conference right now, it is the Oregon Ducks. And if you remember last year, Oregon came in with some big-time college football playoff buzz. Did not quite live up to the hype, but really had an incredible season. If you remember, they opened against Auburn. They were winning the entire game. They fall apart right at the end. Bo Nix touchdown pass. We think this kid is the next rising star in the sport. Hasn't really worked out for Bo Nix. But for Oregon, it kind of was a disappointing start to what was an otherwise awesome season. Play throughout the season. They get to late in the season. They've actually played themselves back in position to potentially go to the college football playoff. They lose late to Arizona State. But it doesn't take away from the fact that it was frankly just a really, really, really positive season for Oregon. They finished the year in the Rose Bowl. They finished 11-2. They beat Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl. And it was obviously a banner season. And of course, it was headlined finally by Justin Herbert being a top 10 pick in the NFL draft. And we see how well he's playing for the LA Chargers right now. So Oregon is the one program I would say right now that might actually be in position to eventually get to where they can compete for playoff berths, and maybe someday for the Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State fans listening, I'm not saying Oregon ever gets to your level, but they are recruiting as well as anybody on the West Coast. They are bringing in 5-star kids that the Oregons and Alabamas and Georgias want, and so things are promising for Oregon, not only for this season, but really in the big picture. Now, as it pertains to this season in specific, I don't really know that Oregon's the team. First of all, they lose Justin Herbert, and whatever, he wasn't great in college. I remember calling him college Kirk Cousins last year. In other words, he'd never played well in those big games. Part of it might have been on Oregon because he looks so good now that he is in the NFL. But when I look at this team, first of all, you still have to replace a first-rounder at quarterback. But then secondly, and this is really, really, really important, Oregon actually got hit really hard by opt-outs earlier this fall, right? They have a team that probably is the Pac-12 favorite. The Pac-12 goes forever before they decide to play. A bunch of guys opt out, and unlike at Ohio State, at USC, at Minnesota, at Penn State, a lot of these guys decide not to opt back in. And so Oregon, maybe more than any other program, was just crushed by opt-outs. Most notably, they had a kid named Penny Sewell who was the top offensive tackle. Many people are saying he may be the number 2 pick in the draft behind Trevor Lawrence this year. He was supposed to be back for his junior year. He opts out. A couple defensive backs opt out. And so it's just hard to see this team kind of reaching their potential with everything that they've lost. They will be breaking in a new quarterback, and there is still talent. They have a running back named C.J. Verdell, who's really good. They have probably the best skill position outside of USC, skill position talent outside of USC in the conference, but it comes down to quarterback. They don't have anybody established. They don't have anybody that they have full confidence in, and it's going to be interesting. But like I said, Oregon will wrap on them. They are the team to watch in the Pac-12. Nobody recruits at the level that they are right now. They actually have 2 5-star linebackers who were committed last year. Penny Sewell's brother, Noah Sewell, and Justin Flo from California, who were both 5-star kids. Like I said, Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama wanted those kids. And so Mario Cristobal, who is widely considered to be one of the best recruiters anywhere in college football, is building a really, really, really good program at Oregon. But I just do question this year if they have quite enough. Transition now to USC, where somehow, some way, Clay Helton is still the head coach at USC. And it's really been, if you date back to the end of not really last season, but the season before, it's been kind of a crazy 2 years or 18 months or whatever it's been for USC. Remember, 2 years ago, USC goes 5-7. Clay Helton is about to be fired. He manages to save his job for 1 year. Oh, and he goes and hires Cliff Kingsbury as his offensive coordinator. Oh, you forgot that happened. Oh, it happened, people. Cliff Kingsbury for like a week was USC's offensive coordinator after he got fired at Texas Tech. And after that, the buzz comes out that he's going to be an NFL head coach. The Arizona Cardinals hire him. But Clay Helton sticks to the idea that he has to modernize this offense. And he does. He hires kind of the next in line kid named Graham Harrell, who was their offensive coordinator last year. And to his credit, he kind of completely flipped USC, They run that air raid offense, which kind of was made famous by Mike Leach, and they were really, really, really successful. It's easy to forget this now because the Pac-12 hasn't played in forever, but USC finished in the top 20 nationally in total offense, and they played really well down the stretch. Took them a while to get going. JT Daniels was the starter. He gets hurt. Keaton Slovis comes in to replace him, and they just go bananas on offense. They win 5 of their final 6 games. Their only loss was to Oregon, who was the Pac-12 champ. And there was really a lot of buzz about USC going into the offseason. There still is a lot of buzz coming into this season. As I said, Keaton Slovis is back. 2 wide receivers who caught 70-plus balls are back. And they got 2 5-star wide receivers that are coming to town. Brew McCoy, who was a 5-star who committed to USC, ended up going to Texas, returns to USC. He is eligible, and another kid named Gary Bryant. And so you look at USC, and it's very realistic that they will have the most explosive offense on the West Coast in the Pac-12. And there's reason to think, based on their talent and based on the way that they finished, they end up going undefeated this year, which would be 7-0 if they can get in all their games, and potentially win the Pac-12. I'm going to continue on USC in a minute, but I want to go to the rest of the league because there is kind of an interesting dynamic with USC and the rest of the league. Just some other notes on teams in this league. Again, I'm not going to spend all day talking about the league, but I do want to talk about some of the other kind of bigger brands in this conference. First of all, Stanford, kind of a fascinating story. Stanford, for years, it just felt like one year after the other. 10 wins, 11 wins, 9 wins, 10 wins, 11 wins. They went 4-8 last year. And what was shocking about them going 4-8, they couldn't run the football. Finished 11th in the Pac-12 in rushing. Obviously, they had no Bryce Love. They had no Christian McCaffrey. Certainly no Andrew Luck at quarterback. And after all those years of having all that NFL talent, it seemed to fall flat on its face. And the crazy thing is, there's not really that much reason for optimism at Stanford this year. Again, they finished 4-8 last year, and they bring back, I don't want to say they bring back. They actually had a couple guys opt out this fall. Much like Oregon, they were hurt by the opt-outs, and now Stanford is kind of a program that's reeling and going in the wrong direction. in talking to some people, I think another interesting thing with Stanford, they're getting hit really hard by grad transfers. This is something to monitor with Stanford going forward. Stanford's grad programs, as you can imagine, they're really hard to get into. They don't make exceptions for athletes, and so a lot of their depth has been taken away because fifth-year seniors actually have to leave the program because they can't get into grad school. And so Stanford is a program to keep an eye on. They actually opened this week at Oregon, but they're a team that's just trending in the wrong direction, and they might not be what we've expected them to be, which, as I said, was was really a 9, 10, 11 win type team, again, coming off a 4-8 year. Staying in the Pac-12 North, just a quick note on Washington. Do not forget that their head coach, Chris Peterson, the legend, the icon, started at Boise State. He actually stepped away in the offseason, didn't want to be in the grind of coaching anymore, decides to step off. Longtime defensive coordinator Jimmy Lake, who is really well respected. Nick Saban actually tried to hire him as his defensive coordinator at one point the last couple years. He takes over as the head coach, and it'll just be interesting to see, right? Replacing a coach that had 3 straight 10-win seasons, 2 Pac-12 titles. And we'll see what the transition is like. I don't know if they are going to be able to maintain that level because really, again, Washington was another school that took a step in the wrong direction last year, going 8-5. They don't recruit at a crazy level. They rely on development. And what happens now that Chris Peterson is gone? Looking through the rest of the league, a couple quick notes before we get out of here. First of all, UCLA. I said USC might be the most interesting team in this conference. I take that back. I actually think it might be UCLA. We are entering year 3 of the Chip Kelly era. And yeah, it's been mostly a dud. 3-9 2 seasons ago, 4-8 last year. The offense is getting better. It is still not a Chip Kelly type offense that you would come to expect after his success at Oregon. But the real story is the defense, man. 113th in the country in total defense a season ago. In terms of scoring defense, they gave up over 35 points per game. And it's just not clicking. And it's kind of crazy to think back to the Chip Kelly era because if you think about it, when he left the NFL, when he got fired for the second time in the NFL and took that year off, it was a year-long process to figure out where Chip Kelly would end up. Remember, he did ESPN studio shows for a year, and everybody was angling to get Chip Kelly. Never forget, Florida wanted Chip Kelly before Chip Kelly committed to go to UCLA. Tennessee was interested the year they hired Jeremy Pruitt. But again, Florida wanted Chip Kelly, and he chose UCLA over Florida. Imagine what would have happened if he had chosen UCLA or he had chosen Florida and he had these kind of results. Kind of incredible to watch. I don't know why it's not working, but it just isn't. I'll be honest, it feels kind of like he's checked out, like he made his tens of millions in the NFL, and now he's at UCLA. I'm going to do it my way. I'm not going to listen to anybody else, and it's just not working, but that is worth monitoring. Just a couple quick notes from across the rest of the league. I'm not going to break down every other team. One, Arizona State. Okay, so Herm Edwards is there. We know that. But we have a lot of Cincinnati Bengals fans that listen to this show, a lot of people in the Tennessee, Kentucky area, Ohio area. And don't know if you've been following what Marvin Lewis has been doing, but Marvin Lewis now the new defensive coordinator at Arizona State, along with Antonio Pierce, who played in the NFL for a long time. So I just thought that was really funny. Listen, not so much this weekend because USC and Arizona State have a very early kickoff on Saturday, but I'm telling you, you're going to be watching Pac-12 football 1:30 in the morning, Saturday night, come home from the bar, Arizona State, Washington or whatever, Arizona State, UCLA, and you're going to be blinking your eyes like, is that Marvin Lewis? He's the defensive coordinator with the Arizona State Sun Devils? Yes, Marvin Lewis is the Arizona State defensive coordinator, so I think that's worth monitoring. Washington State has a new head coach, Mike Leach obviously leaving. Nick Rolovich, who was at Hawaii, is now the head coach there. And Colorado, by the way, for my West Coast listeners, we have a lot of people that listen in California. For those who've forgotten, Colorado's new head coach is Karl Dorrell. For people who do not know who Karl Dorrell is, he was the UCLA head coach for about 5 years, 5 kind of just forgettable years, nothing good, nothing bad, just kind of He is now the Colorado head coach, obviously, after Mel Tucker left in the middle of the offseason to go to Michigan State. So that is the Pac-12 recap. And the one thing I want to say before I move on to this weekend's games, I think the Pac-12 is the key to the most fascinating storyline in college football, which is, what if one of these teams goes undefeated, right? Like, I think we understand that even though Ohio State is playing a condensed schedule, if they go 6-0, 7-0, 8-0, they're getting in the college football playoff. I think we all agree they're one of the 3 or 4 best teams that we've seen in college football, and I don't think there's any debate that they get in. What I think is more fascinating, though, what happens if a Pac-12 team goes 5-0, 6-0? Does that team get in? Do we give them the benefit of the doubt over a 10-2, 11-2 Notre Dame team, a 10-2, 11-2 Georgia team, Florida, whomever, that has been doing it, has been playing, has been practicing basically since July into August without taking a break? I don't have an answer. I do think it is the most fascinating storyline to follow, though, because, look, I spent all of Monday's show talking about it, but we have a real situation on our hands here where I don't know if we're going to get a 4th really qualified team for this college football playoff. And I'm just saying, does a 5-0, 6-0 Pac-12 champ get serious consideration in this crazy year? I do not know, but I do think it's something worth monitoring. All right.